Secretly recorded from deep inside the bowels of a decommissioned missile silo, we bring you the man, one single man who wants to bring light to the darkness and dark to the lightness. Although he's not always right, he is always certain. So now, with security protocols in place, the protesters have been forced back behind the barricades and the blast doors are now sealed. Without further delay, let me introduce you to the host of HuttCast, Mr. Tim Huttner.
Thank you, Sergeant at Arms. You can now take your post. Happy glorious Sunday on HuttCast. Today in studio, a little bit of the spiritual world we're going to be covering. Bonnie Bee Bultman has come into our studio to give us a synopsis of her new book. Her new book of being years of a medical examiner, a RN, and an anesthesiologist. Bonnie is with us today, and she is going to give us, again, this information that just might make you say, Stand by, HuttCast. We'll be right back. Now a word from our sponsors. Today's sponsor in part by Excel Roofing. Excel Roofing. They do it all. Roofs, siding, framing. You need a house? Give Excel a call. I've used these guys personally in the past. Have a professional crew. They're conscious of your job, and they want to produce the finest quality of craftsmanship available. Excel Roofing, 763-712-0757. Again, 763-712-0757. Excel Roofing, Dayton, Minnesota. Let's start out with your credentials. I want to make sure that we got you right. Who are you?
When I first came into the professional world, I did forensic death investigation. I was an investigator. I eventually went on to become an RN and then later went back for my master's in anesthesia as a Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist.
Did we get everything covered in the credentials? I want to make sure that's all accurate.
Yes, I do both independent anesthesia and I do a collaboration where I work with anesthesiologists.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. This book, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm fascinated by the subject. What was the first, we have things called mental currency. What was your mental currency in driving this book to create it? Because, first of all, people don't understand what the book is yet. Do you want to start out with your preface of what it is, or do you want to start out with why you made it?
Let's start out with why I made it.
Go ahead.
In 2020, the devastation that happened to the world with COVID, I had an experience where, for the first time in my life, I had 6 weeks off. And I began writing and sharing angel experiences. And I realized that there were so many people that were dying in the hospital, and they didn't have that experience of sharing the transfer of spirit with their loved ones. And this is a lost gift that is given to most of us when we're able to be with our loved ones at the time of death.
Mm-hmm.
Through experiences such as losing a loved one, you become more of a spiritual person because you can see that the angels or what is coming to get us is there for that person. And I was very concerned with the world that there's less spirituality and less people realizing that this spiritual world exists to us. And that's what led me to writing Mary 153, Mother of the Angels.
Now, Mary 153 is a book of these, should we call them sightings?
Well, it starts out with a little bit about me and what brought me to my journey when my dad died when I was 12 years old. And I became very sick after he died. And I had my first angel experience at that point. And following that, at about year 3, I always had a connection with my dad. I knew when he was around. I knew when he was coming home. And so at year 3, at the time that he died, a music box began to play, and my brother and I, we were sitting in the living room, and that was the area that he died. The hospice bed was in our living room, and this music box sat in the very same corner where he was, and it began to play, and we looked at each other, and I knew it was my dad, and I knew it immediately. And so part of my life was this journey to realize, how did he do it? How did this happen that he could connect and that I knew it was him? And so it led me on my adventure through life to discovering this. And it's always been more of my personal experiences, but through these experiences, I started gathering stories of other people's angel experiences too, and how people maybe became saved and things like that are fascinating. And I started writing these stories down. And it wasn't until much later in my writing that I discovered the significance of Mary 153 and what that meant.
Okay, let's ask a question here. What is the significance of the box? Why is it there? What was it? What was its purpose? Was it just something in the home that you had a decoration? Was it
the music box?
Yeah.
My dad died in December. He knew things that were fascinating to me. Like he knew that he wouldn't live to see 1982, and he died less than 24 hours before that.
1982.
Right.
Okay.
And there was this music box that had angel doves on it, so we only put it out at Christmas time. That music box was sitting there in the corner. It began to play. It wasn't for a long period of time, but it began to play. When my mom was very ill, she had asked us, is there any sentimental things that you would like? And I told her I want this music box because it was how my dad let me know that he was still around. We had this conversation, said she never had those kinds of experience that her kids did. But I told her about this, and the unique thing about that is I had given her a music box that she left on that same table. Mm-hmm. It was like this little girl on a swing. And after she passed, and I brought both of the music boxes to my home, but after she passed, that played. And I was walking by the room and I heard it, and I called to my husband. I'm like, do you hear that? And it was her way of letting me know that she made it as well, even though she didn't have those experiences. It has brought me a lot of comfort and peace, and I want other people to realize that there are these spiritual signs that are out there. Maybe many people don't know that they exist, or they don't see them because they're not tuned into them. The eye sees these things once your mind is prepared to comprehend them.
Now, these boxes that were in the home, they were in your parents' home?
Correct.
And they were theirs?
Yes.
And they were in your area where you were keeping your dad, mom, and they started playing.
The music box, the doves played when my dad died, and then later the music box that was kept in the same area the rest of the time of the year, mm-hmm. That was the one I gave my mom, and then I received that back. That is what played for me after my mom died, and I brought it to my own home and placed it in my office.
So nobody went over and wound them up, or nobody flipped the lid open, or nobody touched them in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Just out of the blue? Just
out of the blue.
Well, I'd call that an intervention of some sort, wouldn't you?
Yes, I definitely believe that, that there's some form of vibrational frequencies that are out there that they can do, that they make contact with us.
Very, very interesting. Okay. Did we cover that question? So we got the boxes. We know where they are. We know that they decided to just go off, and you were in tune enough to listen to them, which is wow. Where do we go from here?
the thing that I think is the most fascinating, and I didn't even really realize it at the time, but it goes back to the connection of, I knew when my dad was around by sometimes it would be smells or a feeling that I would get. And in there, Albert Einstein talked about quantum entanglement, or he referred to like spooky action at a distance.
Okay.
And it's kind of this concept that one particle can effectively know something about another particle instantaneously across the universe. And so my theory is that people like twins, or you have this connection like I had with my dad, were so entangled that I knew immediately that it was him. And so I had this connection with my dad. And what was really neat was in 2020, I was in an area where I knew my dad was there. My sister was with me, and we had taken these pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister Barb, she sends me this picture, and she's like, look at this beautiful picture that I captured. Do you have the same picture on your phone? I went into my photos, and I had the same picture, but from a different angle, and it didn't quite have the same beauty that her picture did. But I framed that picture, and I put it in my living room as I wrote the book, and I didn't really realize, other than because part of it is a rainbow, it looks like a rainbow eye, actually.
Okay.
Didn't know the significance of it later until I started researching what happened after my mom died. There was an event that I knew that one time in my life that I would personally research the mysterious life of Mary Magdalene.
Okay, and for you listeners, because we're not video, we're going to call this the Miracle of the Sun. Is that the one you're talking about?
Nope, I'm still just talking about the picture that ends up becoming the front cover of my book.
Okay, well, yeah, you have it as Miracle of Sun in your flyer or your board, but it's the same picture as on the main cover, correct?
Actually Mary 153
okay.
Is the picture that I'm referring to.
Okay, and we'll make sure that's a chapter marker. So if you guys blow up on your chapter marker, you'll see the picture that Bonnie is talking about.
Once I start researching the mysterious life of Mary Magdalene and what that is, I realized that there's some sacred geometry in how they saved her title throughout history. So the Vesicapiscus is part of sacred geometry. But what I found when I was researching is that there was a gospel that was found back in Egypt, Cairo, Egypt, and it's the Gospel of Mary. And there's a conversation in this gospel where Mary is asking Jesus a question about how she sees a vision. She says, is it through the soul or the spirit? And his reply is, no, it's not the soul or the spirit. It is the lens or the nous between the two. And what is amazing to me is when I started researching the sacred geometry of the Vesicapiscus and how they saved her title through history, that lens is the same shape as the eye of that rainbow eye that I had framed in my living room.
So the book cover is of that eye. Of
the eye. I believe it's the lens of the Vesicapiscus. So I say, be enlightened by the lens that sees.
It's pretty wild out there.
It is. And so I didn't know it at the time. But then with anything in science, you follow trends and patterns. And about a year and 2 months into the writing, all of a sudden there were 2 more images that were the same and under the same set of circumstances, where someone's loved one or somebody grieving, these images were captured, and all of a sudden I had 3. And I thought, this is information. So I put it in the book.
Okay.
And since the release of the book, I've had people sending me this same image. And there was one lady who works for the FBI. She lost her mom. When she looked at the images in my book, she said she gasped. She had scattered her mom's ashes, and there was something there that told her to turn around, and she turned around and she took multiple pictures. The very first picture that she took has the same rainbow eye, a portal. And what is fascinating is that the ancient Greeks believed that rainbows were paths or portals made for the messengers of the gods to travel between heaven and earth. The Buddhists believe that at the time of death, the spirit transcends as a rainbow body or a rainbow body of light, and it is the bridge that connects the 2 planes through the 7 colors of light.
Mm-hmm. And when you were in the field, say you were coroner or whatever that was that you were around these people, did you see any of those at the site?
No, when I did forensic death investigation, I worked really hard to actually shut off kind of the connection that was there, and it was very comforting to me that the majority of the people's spirit had already left. There was nothing there. I didn't get that same feeling that somebody was around.
Okay. So it was gone.
It was gone. So I believe that when you die, that your spirit goes, that the angels are there to greet that person and bring them home.
All right, let's shift some gears here. We are 17 minutes, 33 minutes into this first segment. Let's talk about your board that you brought in. Very interesting board. I'm looking at this photograph, and it is of the Miracle of the Sun, and it's a quite eerie looking picture. Could you describe that?
The Miracle of the Sun happened back in 1917, and it is a picture. There were 70,000 people that gathered, and they were visiting the 6th visit of the Lady of the Rosary. It happened in Fatima, Portugal, and 3 children were visited by this Lady of the Rosary. It was back when World War I was occurring, and the lady appeared to them, said that she was from heaven, and asked the children to pray the rosary to end the war. And she asked the children to come back on each month, the same time each month, on the same date, the 13th of the month. And in July 13th, she gives them prophecies, and all the prophecies they eventually play out through time. And the last prophecy,
so they came through.
They came through, and actually the last prophecy that was given to the Vatican, that became true 64 years later, on the same date of the first occurrence of the Lady of the Rosary to the children, and it saved the Pope's life.
We're coming up in July. It's going to be something coming up. What are you thinking?
In July is actually part of how they saved Mary Magdalene's title. July 22nd is the feast day of Mary Magdalene. And part of that, going back to the Vesica Piscis mathematical equation. So in history, the one circle, so for people that don't know what the Vesica Piscis is it's 2 intertwining circles, and then the shape in between is basically the shape that is captured in that rainbow. And what is interesting is the Greeks believe that numbers are the language of the universe, and referred to the Vesica Piscis as the doorway of life.
Well, given our current status of how our world is, we're just due for another one of these miracles, are we not? Because we're coming up to the 7th, and then there's a whole lot of things going on.
Right. And that's the neat thing, is that although the masculine side of basically Christianity is out there and very prominent, in the 4th and 5th century, the feminine side was really destroyed. And so the 722, that is how her name title was saved throughout history.
Okay. Well, let's do this. We're 21-23 into the next segment. Let's come into the next segment and talk about some more of this board, because there is a fascinating bunch of lightning pictures. There's all kinds of stuff on here. Can we talk about that when we come back?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, for HuttCast, we'll be right back after these short commercials.
Need a quick, healthy boost to start your day? Try Superfuel. Superfuel by Casmo is loaded with vitamins and healthy ingredients that will give you a quick, healthy boost. Make Superfuel a great-tasting, low-calorie addition to your daily regimen. Order Superfuel at www.superfuel.me or call 833-FUEL-X12, FUEL-X12, or 833-383-5912, Superfuel.
Welcome back to HuttCast. In our studio today, Bonnie Bultman is here to talk about a new book.
So the 153, it is how her title is saved. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Gematria is an alphanumeric code assigning a numerical value to a name or phrase according to its letters. And the Greeks used mathematics and deliberate spellings or misspellings to ensure understanding of these secret principles. It forms a code, and the Vesica Piscis is one of these sacred mysteries. So in the Greek gematria, Mary, the H Magdalene, equals 153. And there's significance to her title, and I want to kind of talk about a bit about what I dive into in the book. Mary Magdalene, she performs the anointing of Jesus before and after the crucifixion. An anointment was an act of divine grace. The person that's performing this act became a supreme mediator between God and the creation of a king. It is also a status that is given to a royal bride. These acts confirm her status as a priest, priestess, or even some have called her a great goddess of the ancient world. She is the feminine side of the Vesica Piscis, and Jesus is the masculine side, and the lens comes from these overlapping circles.
Hence the look of the cover.
The lens becomes the overlapping of the two circles. So being enlightened by the lens that sees is the main premise of this. And what is so fascinating is Mary Magdalene, who now they're bringing her status up from where she was basically defamed in the 4th and 5th centuries as a prostitute and a sinner. Really, Christianity came from her testimony. She proclaims this to the other disciples, and they go out and they spread this across the world. And it's just fascinating, but we can see what happened to the feminine side. Margaret Starberg and many others have put so much of their lives' work into helping save her title. When the book, The Holy Blood, Holy Grail came out, when many people read this, like Margaret Starberg, they couldn't believe it. And so a lot of it was diving into her life and what this meant. Was she the wife of Jesus? Did they have children? Was she the vessel that went on to France? And so originally she went on to prove this wrong, that it couldn't be so. But as you dive into the history, secret societies that went on to protect this, they ended up going into hiding and being destroyed, and it kind of goes into some of the Holy Inquisition that happens. What's interesting is Pope Innocent declares war in the area or the region that she lived on her feast day of July 22nd.
Okay. Are you seeing some correlation in today's world with this? How are you tying this together?
I think that women, and it can happen to men too, in history, what is so neat, and this is part of what I display on the board, is that she lived in exile for over 1,000, getting closer to 2,000 years. And so she was chained. Her title wasn't known, but she is starting to break free of those chains. I do think that her story is coming out, and what is so fascinating in my research is that where she's chained in France, she is starting to break the chains in America. And the Holy Grail in lighting the world is right in front of our face. And
define that in front of our face.
Is that the Freemasons gave a gift to America. It holds many significant features that tie to the Trinity, the sevens of what basically God would be about. But it is basically a shrine to seven. In one of my chapters, God's favorite number is 7. I go through the significance of a lot of our life. What we have the 7 seas,
7 continents.
7 continents. There's 7 colors to the rainbow.
Lucky sevens, Casino 7 Royal. Right, I get you.
Right,
Crown
yeah.
7-7 for you drinkers.
Yeah, there we go. So the 7 days of the week. All of that is about God.
The number 7.
The number 7.
Okay.
And so basically this shrine is to the number 7. It is throughout history. And now the gift of the Freemasons to the Freemasons of America, they're now starting to be able to talk about some of what they did within things. I believe that is a shrine to Mary Magdalene when I researched it and saw all the correlations. So in chapter 28, it's the Holy Grail in lighting the world. And what's significant to me is when the image that I have on the front cover that I think is the lens, or looking at it as a portal, is that picture was obtained in July of 2020. The pictures that I have of the 777s was a lightning storm in New York, and there's 3 7s within that lightning storm that are enlightening the Holy Grail that's enlightening the world.
Okay, I'm looking at it right now. I see, looks like the wider base of the lightning going towards the Statue of Liberty. I see a 7 there. How do you get 7 from 3 7s, you said?
It's a video of a lightning storm.
Okay.
If you slow the video down, you can see that there's 3 7s that come through the storm.
Okay. Those pictures are quite amazing.
Incredible.
And what is the one, I'm looking at the board again, what is the one with the ships? I'm looking at a bay, got 2 vessels on there.
So after writing the book, during it, I start realizing the significance of numbers, and there's angel numbers, and I've started writing stories for the second, another book in the future, and it'll be about angel numbers and how numbers appear. And so since writing the book, I've been able to capture more images that are God made of 7. And so this was actually in St. Bart's. I was on a trip. There's the rainbow going across. Up in the sky is a 7. 7 is around through the clouds, is through there, and there's a 7 within the clouds too. It's just a form of like angel communication that is just, I think, just super neat. And once we open our eyes to see what is there, we realize that there's a bigger spiritual connection going on in the world than we maybe realized.
So I'm looking at the ships and the vessels. I can't see the 7s. Maybe I'm not part of the club. I'm out of that circle. But I see the rainbow. And now, by given your current information prior to this, is that rainbow for you, or is that rainbow for somebody else that lost somebody or was supposed to be seeing somebody?
Well, there's the scientific part of the rainbow.
Sure, the particles ripped off the sun. I get that.
Right, yeah, the prisms and things like that I think for the majority, it's a sign from God. And so it was just neat. For me, what I thought was significant is if you look right above that rainbow and the white part of that picture, that it is a 7 in the clouds.
Okay, the whiter version of it, I can kind of see that.
It was just a neat picture. I think through this process, we can start to realize that there's comfort and peace that can be brought to people through these signs. That there's
some sort of connection.
Yeah, there's this connection that we have. Some people, it may be as simple as a little penny being placed, like pennies from heaven, feathers. A lot of people get their connection through animals, that the spirits can guide animals. And so that I talk about that quantum entanglement, or that the angels or spirits can guide animals to you through that. And I think a lot of people have that connection. That is one of the stories that you will hear consistently from other people, is that they had this bird or a cardinal that came to them, butterflies, dragonflies. There's several different things that can happen where people realize that never happened to me before, but now this person that has beloved is now, letting them know I'm still here.
By proxy, through that animal, through the insect, through whatever that is, but you're now paying attention to it, so therefore you don't think that's kind of coincidence or circumstance?
There's some very unique stories where sometimes the person may have had that conversation with a loved one before they passed.
Okay.
And then you get the story of, how are you going to let me know that you made it? Like, I had that conversation with my mom about wanting the music box. That's how my mom let me know. She didn't tell me she was going to do that. Obviously, she didn't know at that time. But there's other people that have had stories where they've asked them, can you let me know through this means? And they've had that experience, that bird. One story I heard was about a cardinal, and here the cardinal actually comes and lands on her shoulder. And so there's just all these stories, and I think a lot of people have stories. They just fear sharing them. And hopefully through this book, with these shared stories, because there's many shared stories, after about the 5th, 6th chapter, I get into a lot of the shared stories of how people have been saved or had these stories of guidance, that I think it'll bring a lot of peace and comfort to the world.
Let's talk about the book. Where can I get one?
I have it on Amazon. You can purchase it on Amazon. I have an ebook for Kindle Unlimited users. They can download it for free for a period of time. I did that for people that are out there. But you can purchase the book on Amazon, and my website also has the link to the Amazon book, and it's Mary153 motheroftheangels.com is my website.
When did you release the book?
It was released right before Easter on April 12th was the paperback book, and the ebook came out shortly after that.
Has it crossed the oceans yet?
No. And one thing that I would eventually like to do is to have the book come out in audio, because light and sound waves is how the spirit travels. And what I think is fascinating is a long time ago, Margaret Starberg talked about the waves or the air sign, and that there is a shift in astrological age that occurs every 2,150 years, and that we're shifting to a new sign, that it is two parallel lines or waves. And what is so neat is she talks about eventually this dissolution or where she'll be, Mary Magdalene will be freed, is through the airwaves. And I thought it was just an incredible, almost like a prophecy, because now when you hit 2020 and 2021, now audiobooks are the fastest growing areas in publishing.
I.e. podcast.
I.e. podcast. And then also, just audiobooks, podcasts, all that is a way of sharing information with people that maybe at one point are not enlightened, or they just didn't choose to research beyond what was delivered to them. And now they have the ability to read or listen and discover things for themselves.
Okay. We're shifting another gear here. What do you want to tell people? What do you want them to learn from this? What's the takeaway?
I want them to know that they're never alone, that the spirituality is through experiences, and that the pain that we suffer here on earth is only temporary, that eventually these signs are available to you to know that you're not alone, and they're being more prominent. And as this book comes out, more of these pictures will be known and seen by other people. I think it'll give people hope that there is an everlasting pain-free peace to our life.
How do people get a hold of you? Do you want stories for your book? Do you want some material? Tell us how we can reach out and get a hold of you. Say, I've got this story, you really need to listen.
Well, I've started doing some book signings, and then I also, on my website, there is a contact. And so stories like this, or in the next book I want to write about, is like angel numbers that I find fascinating. So I'm just starting the research, but obviously I need to put a little more energy into getting this known, because I think that there's many people out there that are hurting and suffering and alone, and maybe have wandered away from spirituality because of, the things that have happened. And
we live in a cancel culture society. And if you are spiritual, or if you're agnostic, if you're whatever you are, if someone don't like you, they like to cancel you. And I see this as if they don't like it, too bad. You mind, keep an eye on your own bobber. So I'm with you on that. That makes sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Didn't want to blurt that out there, but it's like, I'm so sick of cancel culture. If you want to believe in a faith, good for you. And to go into hiding because you believe in something is not how we should be. That's how I kind of pull on that. Let's go through the books again. Where do we find your books?
On Amazon. It's Mary 153, Mother of the Angels by Bonnie Bee Bultman.
And it is a yellow cover?
It is a yellow cover with the rainbow portal, as if you're looking through the lens that sees.
And your website again is?
Mary153, motheroftheangels.com.
Any book signings set up across country yet?
No, but I would love to be interviewed by Nora O'Donnell or Oprah Winfrey.
We'll send her a show link. How about that?
That would be wonderful.
I don't know if she'd do it. Maybe we're not big enough. But hey, if she does listen to Oprah, give her a call. All right. Anything else you want to cover? We're at 21:36 into this segment.
The one thing that I've gotten a lot of feedback on that people really enjoy are definitely the other shared stories of the other people in the book. And I want to say thank you to all the people that have done research and the people that were willing to share their stories with me so that we can help other people that are hurting in the world, and hopefully they find some peace and hope.
All right, you heard it live from Bonnie Bee Bultman directly. And thank you for coming in the studio and sharing your wonderful story. I can't say it enough. It's been a fascinating depiction of holy cow. I mean, what do you say? I mean, the words aren't even there. It's surreal, shall I say?
It's incredible.
It's incredible. Okay, we're going to pull the pin there. For HuttCast, we want to thank you very much for tuning in and give us some feedback on the Facebook sites. We are getting 51 countries. We appreciate that. Russia, we hope to get you back online pretty soon. Maybe we can stop doing the hate in there. I don't know. But for HuttCast and Mary 153, Mother of Angels, tune in, try and get a copy of it somewhere, and let us know what you think. So be well and happy Sunday. And that's a wrap for HuttCast. HuttCast is, again, a pragmatic approach to seeing things how some people see them. If you like our show, give us a thumbs up on the Facebook site. Again, for HuttCast, thank you again. Have a wonderful evening.